have you ever noticed that the louder someone shouts about free speech, the quicker they are to demand silence when the criticism is aimed at them? That contradiction, that tension, is exactly what exploded this week in the clash between Bill Maher, Jimmy Kimmel, President Trump, and the Republican establishment. What happened wasn't just another late-night controversy. It was a snapshot of the ongoing battle in America over who gets to speak freely and who pays the price when powerful voices get offended. Tonight, we take you deep inside the war of words, the backstage drama, and the sharp humor that exposes the hypocrisy behind the headlines. It all began when Jimmy Kimmel, the host of Jimmy Kimmel Live, made remarks about Charlie Kirk, the conservative activist who was recently shot and killed in Utah. The tragedy itself was already stirring emotions across the political spectrum, but when Kimmel suggested that the so-called MAGA gang was trying to portray the suspected shooter as anything other than one of their own, the backlash was immediate. Conservative figures accused Kimmel of politicizing a murder and painting an entire movement with a broad brush. His words lit a fire online, where clips of the monologue were shared and dissected, and soon that fire reached the executives at ABC. Within hours, the network suspended Kimmel indefinitely, citing the controversy and the mounting pressure from both political leaders and advertisers. Nexstar Media Group, which owns stations affiliated with ABC, quickly announced that its affiliates would preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live. And when FCC Chair Brendan Carr publicly condemned Kimmel's comments, the weight of regulatory pressure was suddenly in the mix. Kimmel was, for the moment, off the air, but the silence of one late-night host quickly made room for another. Enter Bill Maher, host of Real Time, who has never been shy about taking on political hypocrisy, no matter which side of the aisle it comes from. On Friday night, Maher opened his show with a sly grin and a pointed jab. "I know why you're happy tonight. I'm still on." The audience laughed, but there was an undercurrent of seriousness in his tone. He compared the wave of late-night suspensions to Blockbuster stores shutting down in the 1990s, quipping, "Talk show hosts are going down like Blockbusters in the 90s. I mean, it's a few." It was funny, yes, but also unsettling, because the laughter was covering up an uncomfortable truth. Voices were being silenced. Maher leaned into the tension. "Let me just tell you something. I am not intimidated by the Federal Communications Commission," he declared, looking straight into the camera. Then, with his trademark sarcasm, he aimed directly at President Trump. "And if President Trump is watching, I have one thing to say to you. Have you lost weight? You look terrific." The joke was classic Maher, a mix of mock compliment and sting, but the message was deadly serious. He would not be scared into silence. For Maher, this wasn't just about Kimmel. It was personal history repeating itself. He reminded viewers that back in 2002, ABC had canceled his previous show, Politically Incorrect, after comments he made in the wake of the September 11th attacks stirred controversy. He pulled out an old clipping from Variety, the headline reading, "White House keeps heat on ABC's Maher." "This ain't new," Maher said, tapping the paper. "It's worse, we'll get to that. But you know, ABC, they are steady. ABC stands for always be caving." The line drew roars of laughter and applause from the studio, but beneath it lay a scathing critique. Corporate media will bend to political pressure if it protects their bottom line. Turning back to Kimmel, Maher offered solidarity. "Jimmy, pal, I am with you. I support you. And on the bright side, you don't have to pretend anymore that you like Disneyland." The reference to Disney, ABC's parent company, hit home. Maher recalled how, when he was fired, one of the silver linings was not having to go through the corporate charade of promoting the happiest place on earth. He laughed, but again, the humor carried bitterness. "That was always a great part of it for me when I got my canned over there," he admitted, the audience chuckling knowingly. Maher then dug into what he saw as the heart of the issue: intimidation from the political right. "This intimidation on the right is just so hypocritical," he said, his voice sharpening. "Everyone is scared now, and they're all trying to kowtow." He illustrated the absurdity with another joke. "Good Morning America is now changing its name to Good Morning America. Even the scum who didn't vote for Trump." The studio erupted in laughter, but the subtext was unmistakable. Free speech was being chilled, not by government censors in the traditional sense, but by a culture of fear driven by political power. Meanwhile, outside of Maher's studio, the controversy was spreading like wildfire. Several Democratic lawmakers came out against ABC's decision, calling it an act of censorship. Some even demanded that FCC Chair Brendan Carr resign for what they saw as overreach in defending political allies while undermining journalistic and comedic expression. Across social media, fans of late-night comedy rallied in support of Kimmel, creating hashtags and campaigns that framed him as the latest victim of political censorship. Other late-night giants, including Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert, publicly stood by Kimmel, stressing the importance of defending one another in the face of political attacks. The late-night community, often divided by style and network rivalries, seemed united on this front. Silencing a comedian over political pressure set a dangerous precedent. And then came Trump himself. Never one to miss a chance to flex his influence, the former president praised ABC's move, signaling on Thursday that networks and late-night shows should refrain from being overwhelmingly critical of him. It was a statement that left little room for nuance. Criticism of Trump was unwelcome, and networks that punished critics would be applauded. For Maher, that was the smoking gun of hypocrisy. The same political movement that claims to defend free speech on college campuses, in social media disputes, and in culture wars was now celebrating when speech they didn't like was punished. To Maher, it was a textbook case of selective outrage. What makes this story so gripping isn't just the clash of personalities, but the way it exposes deeper questions about power, comedy, and the fragility of free speech. Comedy, after all, thrives on pushing boundaries, on pointing out the absurdities of those in charge. But when those in charge are able to pressure corporations and regulators into punishing comedians for their words, the stage itself becomes a battlefield. Maher, by standing up for Kimmel, was also standing up for his own craft, his own right to lampoon anyone, including the most powerful man in America. The irony was thick. Here was Bill Maher, who had been canceled before cancel culture was even a term, now defending a fellow comedian from a conservative-driven cancellation. The right, which often rails against cancel culture when it comes from the left, was now engaging in the very behavior it claimed to despise. Maher's monologue laid bare that contradiction in real time, using humor to pierce through the noise and expose the core truth. Censorship, no matter where it comes from, is censorship. As the episode closed, Maher's words hung in the air like both a warning and a rallying cry. He wasn't intimidated, he said, and he wasn't backing down. The audience gave him a standing ovation, not just for the jokes, but for the defiance. In that moment, the battle lines were clear. On one side, a culture of intimidation, fueled by political leaders and corporate compliance. On the other, a tradition of comedy and commentary that refuses to bow, even when the consequences are severe. Whether Jimmy Kimmel will return to his show, whether ABC will hold the line or cave further, remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, Bill Maher has lit a fire of resistance, reminding us that humor is not just entertainment. It is a weapon, a shield, and sometimes the last refuge of free speech in a country where the powerful would prefer silence. And as long as Maher is on the air, he's going to use that weapon, no matter how many times the establishment tries to take it away.